Welcome.
To,
What?
that's
What's
not important
not,
right
that's
now.
not important right now. We never get to do this damn thing in unison, I don't know.
Jared, I hate you. Get off my show, Jared. Get off the show.
Man. Get off the show. Come on. You know I'm the funny guy to your straight man. You know that, baby. Come on now. Don't be like that. Don't be like that at all. You know what I'm talking about.
I am shocked that you assumed my sexual orientation.
Don't go all Dave Chappelle. Don't go all Dave Chappelle and me now, Don't do that.
We need to talk about Dave Chappelle and all of that thing on another show. Yeah.
Yes.
But welcome back to this is episode 9 of
episode
season
9.
2.
Wow, look at that. Season 2.
We're actually running I'm running an ad on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Hey.
Facebook gave me a free credit because they tried
Thank you, Mike Zuckerberg. Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg.
So I'm running this ad, and I'm getting all these messages on WhatsApp on Facebook.
Really?
What is your business about?
Oh, what the hell? The fuss?
Three things. No, 2 things. People don't know. People don't read.
That's true.
They have not listened to the because it's the excerpt, the 5-minute excerpt from last week's episode. Well, actually, this week's episode, because we do this on a Wednesday. So if you haven't checked out this week's episode, please go.
You should.
Episode 7.
Please do.
We have an excerpt on YouTube as well. And they don't. Number 3, they see a message button and they click it. And I'm always in awe of people, specifically Trinidadians.
Exactly.
Their inability, or their ability to just see shiny things and click them.
Yeah, how seduced we are by beads and trinkets. We get it.
Anyway. So what we're going to talk about today, again,
I think this is a pretty exciting topic.
Thank you for joining us. Listen, we record this on a Wednesday at 6:30 in the evening, but it comes out on a Monday morning. So happy Monday, y'all.
Happy Monday.
Hope y'all having a good day, good week. Have a good week. We know how stressful it is, especially in this time with the unspecified virus.
Yes.
My cousin just sent me a WhatsApp asking me if I know about the penalties for not wearing a mask. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So please wear a mask. It sucks.
It does, but it's essential that we do it. Yeah. If we want to come out on the other end of this pandemic. I mean this unspecified stuff. You can bleep out the P word.
Yeah. So we have a guest today.
Very special guest.
Want to just give me a little idea of who it is?
Well, let me put it this way. This gentleman can be regarded, and he really is a gentleman. He's extremely, not only is he talented, he is iconic. He is just super brilliant. He is inventive. He's imaginative, and he's a fine human being, an absolute professional, and a masterclass when it comes to music, to the arranging of music, and he is in my view a national treasure. So we are honored to have on, but that's not important right now, none other than Mr. Carl Beaver Henderson.
He's a famous guy.
He is.
He's been associated with a lot of well-known performers.
Oh yes, yes. I mean, he is.
A lot of Calypsonians and soca stars. I'm not
soca
sure.
Stars
did he work with Francis Eskai and company?
He most likely he sure did. He worked in a I think work is not the correct word. Let's say that he started things up. He was with a band called Fireflight, and this was back in the early 1980s.
Yeah.
But even before that, he was well known for his skills as a producer, as an arranger, as an all around amazing musician. So, and he's also, not only is he famous in terms of of being one of the pioneers of local music. But also, I mean, he is extremely knowledgeable and has he's a walking treasure trove of information and experience with respect to music, local music, and advertising. Because as we all know, there was a time, and I think this started out in probably in the early to mid '70s. I could be wrong. When there were times when we just lifted stuff from other forms of music, from international music, and at the risk of being plagiarized and what have you. And even with the advent of local of more local music, it still happened. But at the same time, there were we had more, shall we say, inventive and innovative ideas with respect to the music and how it was a part and parcel of how we were able to just sell the product and make it more emotive and memorable. So we were extremely lucky to have somebody. And it's not just, obviously it's not just Carl Beaver Henderson. I mean, there are other individuals, of course, who were well known. People like Robin Imamsha, for example. He and in fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, and Carl, if he's listening, could correct me on it.
Well, he hasn't
Carl
joined us
was.
yet, but
Has he joined us yet? No, he
no,
hasn't.
he hasn't. Now I'm trying to see if it's because he got the wrong passcode.
Oh my
My
goodness.
bad. Anyway, go on.
So now I remember. I can remember a time when, and this is a long time ago, when I must have been about an infant. He was with a band in the '70s called The Last Supper. The Last Supper. He and Robin Imamsha were part of that band, and they had a big hit in that year. It was kind of like a pop disco sort of Trini song, and it was called Trinidad Boogie. Great, great arrangement and everything. And yeah, I mean, he's, like I said, he's been around for a long time, and as I said, he's an icon. He's an icon, and he's a national treasure,
Oh,
as was mentioned before.
okay.
So
Okay. So just before we bring on Carl, we want to talk about something a little bit topical. We want to do
yes,
so. We want to do a better show on it, but we just wanted to mention it. It's about this Korean drama that's been sweeping the Netflix, and anybody who's watched Korean dramas know that this is how they are. But the world seems to be caught up in this drama of the Squid Game
right.
um,
Squid Game
uh,
phenomenon.
phenomenon. I don't think you've seen it. Have you seen it?
I have not seen a single episode. I know what it's about, but
Right.
I've never seen a single episode.
It's good. I think you should look at
Yeah,
it. Don't get me wrong. I
yeah,
think it's very well done. Very, very
yeah.
well done. Um, but what is happening is that a lot of brands, because it's trending and
Right.
it's on the it's in the
It's part of the
in
zeit. It's part of the current zeitgeist, if you will.
right.
Is that right?
What has happened is they have decided that they're going to get easy engagement on Facebook and Instagram and social media overall by
Right.
bandwagoning. And I wrote an article on my blog about
I
bandwagoning.
read that. It's
I
very
think
incisive there. Yeah.
I think I summed it up very clearly that when you do things like this as a brand, you behave like a 16-year-old girl.
Uh-huh.
So you can't just drop. So the reason is a brand has posted an image of one of the games, which it's based on a lot of Korean games. As a side note, the top StarCraft players in the world and Warcraft players in the world are from South Korea. And I've always said, if you need somebody to fight the aliens, you get a South Korean general, right? And the
Right.
idea,
Correct.
and I discovered that Koreans, South Koreans, are very, very much part of the cultures. A lot of these games, and some of these games are from Europe, and some of these games are from we know, right?
Right. Correct.
And they just have their own spin on it and culture and whatever. And the games that they play in Squid Game is similar. But one of the games I've never seen and never heard of it was, eating this cookie and you can't break the shape that's in the cookie. That's basically the idea of the game. You have to do it in
Right.
half an hour. And of course, well, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but Squid Game is very, very, very brutal. Anyway,
Yeah.
this brand decided it was going to put its logo as one of these things. And everybody's like, are you insane? You can't put your logo. Anyway, we just wanted to mention that
Yeah.
if you are a brand and you're working within a brand, you're working within an agency, don't just bandwagon. Okay?
Yeah. That because that
If you're
yeah,
gonna bandwagon on something that is relatable to your brand.
exactly. And
You
that
know,
makes perfect sense.
I would say I would put Ted Lasso above anything. The wholesomeness of Ted Lasso needs to be
Right.
something that people should be. But because it's not trending as much as Squid Game, you're not going to get that. But
Yeah.
I mean,
You're not gonna get that.
that. Anyway, we wanted to talk about that because it's topical. We don't want to leave our guest waiting for too long.
No,
He's
we can't.
actually in there waiting. So
Okay, he's waiting.
I'm gonna bring in Carl. But I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I mean, I'm just
Specifically.
saying that if you're, I mean, I have, listen, I have endorsed and I will endorse what you just said. If you're going to do any sort of bandwagoning, make sure that it's relatable to the product itself.
Yeah.
Don't just do it because it's trending. If you do it because it's trending, you're going to suffer a lot of, long-term damage to your brand.
Yeah.
And especially if that brand has a lot of weight and if it's known, if it has a reputation for being classy and represents integrity, why are you doing that? If you do that, you're not gonna get any kind of. It's not. But then you see, the thing about it is, our attention span is so short. We'll probably forget it within a couple of weeks.
We forget it. Yeah, we forget about it. But
there it is.
Anyway, let's bring in Carl. See if Carl is going to join us. Carl's name is Carl Beaver unquote Henderson.
Right.
Carl unquote Beaver unquote Henderson is muted.
Oh no!
So Carl, if you could unmute yourself, that would be great.
Muted.
There you are.
Success.
Hello, Carl.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Do you prefer to be called Beaver or Carl?
Beaver. Actually, it is so bad that the banks and all cash checks under the name Beaver.
Oh my God. That's your brand. That's awesome.
That's your brand, though.
That's your brand. That's your brand. That's awesome. I just want to say that I distinctly remember meeting Beaver, Carl, in the agency. Oh, by the way, we don't mention the name of the agency we worked at.
No, we don't mention the name of the agency, just so you know.
That place.
Right?
That place.
I remember meeting you. I remember meeting you when what was it? Oh gosh, Malcolm Mango was working there at the time. Who was with Malcolm in the audio room at the time, boy? He was working. He works for Lonsdale. No, he works for Lonsdale now.
No.
Anson. And I remember you and Anson just having a ball in that audio room. But something I don't even know what it was, but I just thought, wow, this guy is so funny. You're a funny guy. That's what I remember. But I also remember bouncing you up at a Christmas party at somebody's house. I think it was the guy who owned Advanced Dynamics at the time, up in Diego Martin.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm this young guy, like this 21-year-old guy, and I've never seen a house like this. I'm like, wow, look at this house. There's a stripper pole in the house. I'm like, wow, this is so awesome. But Suzanne was there, and we were hanging out together. And Carl, you always were this kind of, cool cool guy. So I'm like, that's what I remember. I remember these things. I don't remember Carl Beaver's music. I remember Carl being cool.
No, put it this way. My philosophy is one life to live is limited. So I enjoy every moment I can, my friend.
Great. All right, Jared, you take it away.
I take it away. Okay, so how did you? I mean, obviously you started, and I said this when you hadn't joined us as yet, but I think and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but my earliest association of you in terms of your music, I can remember when in the mid 1970s there was an outfit known as the Last Supper. Were you a part of that by any chance?
Yeah, Robin Imamsha myself started Last Supper.
The Last Supper. I thought as much. And that is how I found out that you were one of the key people behind it. And it was a very memorable song. But what I wanted to ask you was, how did you? I mean, obviously you've been responsible for the careers of a lot of local artists.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you now, how did you get into advertising? I mean, how were you able to get into the usage of, in terms of the usage of local music? How did it start?
Actually, this year I'm celebrating being in the industry. This is my kind of milestone. This is my 50th year in the music entertainment industry.
My
Congratulations.
word. Congratulations, awesome. Carl. That is incredible.
And so, I mean, actually we started, Robin and myself, we started together. And it was the last day of school at St. Mary's, the very last day. And I think I went back and I checked, I think it was the 9th of July, 1971.
My goodness.
I wasn't even a thought.
I was a kid in diapers. Wow.
Right.
Well, you probably already have two fatty women talking to a Saints man, so that make it even worse.
No, I mean, I've seen the eras change. In those days, the battle was always St. Mary's QRC. Right?
Yeah.
And then I've seen it go from St. Mary's to QRC to St. Mary's to Presentation College, then QRC to Presentation, then St. Mary's. It varies. And then St. Anthony's was the new kid on the block, you know?
Yeah.
So we've gone through that with Intercall. No, but coming back to the advertising thing, actually, the first ad we did, the very first ad we did, that was at Last Supper, was "A Beer is a Carib."
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Written by Frankie Atwell. So actually, Frankie Atwell was the man who coined the phrase "A beer is a Carib," and I think Robin discussed it on a podcast, a videocast with Robin Foster recently, because we did it. We made a trade-off because Frankie Atwell did this ad for Carib, and he's the one who coined the phrase "A beer is a Carib," the first in this country ad, and Last Supper did it. And in lieu of payment, instead of getting paid cash, he arranged studio time at K Studios first to record do our first recording.
Nice.
Okay?
That's the way you do it.
That was that. But my personal first thing that I did, the first person to bring advertising to me would have been Patrick Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was 1978, somewhere around 78, 79. I was the producer at Sam Studio at the time. I was running Sam Studios on Mokarapa Road.
That's in St. James, Mokarapa Road. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And Patrick, the first ad I got, I remember it was a Guinness ad that he brought to me at the time. And since then, I mean, all right, because I was producing a hit a week in those days, basically.
Okay.
And
on your own or with the band?
No. I was independent at the time. I was the producer for Sam Studios. So that era.
Okay.
Yeah. So that era, I had just finished a Gene Lawrence album, Sunrise to Sunset.
I remember that too. The music there was incredible. That was an incredible piece of work, though.
Well, actually, during the coup, that was one of the songs, because every time I hear it, that coup.
Yeah. Because they used that. I remember they used that as part of the sign-on sequence for TDT back in the mid 1970s. That's how I remember it. Yeah.
Right. So I just finished that. I was not quite 79 yet, because I won the road march in 79 with Posa Find a Party, but I think it was just before that. Right. And then that era I won the road march. I did Om Shanti album with Shorty. I was just doing hits. And Patrick found me in the meantime. And actually, how Patrick came to me, Patrick was temporarily a member of Last Supper. Yeah, because Patrick, Robin Imamcha had left to go and do his music degree in Canada. Right. And during that year, Patrick joined the band as replaced Robin while he was studying outside. So that's how we originally met. Anyway, he found me, and when he brought the ad to me, I just considered an ad is a 30-second hit, full stop. You know, I mean, I treat it no differently. But what I've found over the years is, well, Jared, you know how far we go back.
Yes, yes.
But I find a lot of the young producers or script writers and copywriters and stuff, a lot of these people in advertising now are people who have come out of university. And there are a lot of book sense people, but not real sense people. Right? No, it comes like a musician. I can tell you, an ad is a 30-second hit. You can do a record and be produced by somebody who graduated from Full Sail or Berkeley and stuff, or you could be produced by somebody who's been living in studios for their life. It's two different types of stuff: the real life or graduated life.
What I want to know is, what I wanted to know is, putting it into perspective of the 70s moving into the 80s, one of the things from our previous podcast is that we were talking about music and the fact that I remember as growing up, a lot of foreign music just being thrown onto ads. And you were saying that your first production that you did for an ad was Carib.
Carib and then a Guinness.
Right, and a Guinness. And then that kind of leads me into asking, what was the landscape like for jingle production? Because if we're going to be talking ad, we're talking jingle production. So like writing music specifically for radio or for even for TV, because a lot of TV ads had a lot of this kind of, foreign music. If you're going to call it foreign music, a lot of foreign music that just, and as somebody once pointed out to me years ago, he said, copyright be damned. We'll put whatever we feel like, put it on an ad and run it. At least that's what I remember growing up. I don't know if that gels with your experience.
You're quite right, because actually, right. So for instance, when we did an ad in those days, it wasn't as extensive that there were jingle writers or stuff. If you needed an ad done, you came to somebody who was an accomplished producer on a range in the country. So who used to do those ads, like myself, Robin, Nappy, Clive Bradley. In other words, you came to people who produce hits, right? There were no specialist jingle writers in those days, right? And you're quite right, because in those days, the Copyright Act was not really enforced. So almost everybody had foreign music. They just imported the ads or the audio from abroad, right? And if you notice, the two ads that I just called, the first two I did was Carib and Guinness, right? Well, Carib was a local product, and Guinness, I think, was within the Carib community at the time also, right? Yeah. So, but the local music production for ads was not as it is now because of copyright.
Yeah. When did that change, though? Do you know if that was a change that happened gradually, or did it just happen one day that you just started seeing more and more people wanting to do more original?
It was a gradual thing. And I mean, I can tell you, because I served on the board of COT for 3 terms, at different times, eras.
That must have been fun.
Don't remind me. And actually, and that was, COT was partly responsible for that, getting the copyright straight. Because the thing is, because of COT and tied into international agencies around the world, they have certain things they had to abide to enforce. Yeah. So, in other words, now, like for instance, if somebody uses a piece of foreign music and COT picks it up, they stop them,
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to use a foreign piece of music, they have to go through COT or find the publisher to get approval before they use it. Yeah. And some of the agencies know that because I was with COT, they will call me and ask me for advice. I give advice sometimes, on how to use copyright and what to do and what not to do when they're in doubt. But it's because of COT that happened.
Not wanted to get into technical specifics, but if somebody's listening now, and they wanted to use a piece of music, quickly, what is the process? What should they do first?
Pick up the phone and call COT to get clearance.
And it's as easy as that.
No, it is as easy as wanting to do it.
but actually getting it done, that's an entirely different matter.
Yeah, because then COT has now to find the publishers globally, and I guess they have an international direction which they could find the publishers to get clearance. And some people bluntly refuse, and some people, or they might then put in a request by the cost so high that the local client will not even bother any further.
Right. Jared, I don't know if you want to.
Well, I think one of the questions that I've always wanted to ask you was that has there ever been a campaign that you've worked on that you really believed in when there were the naysayers who said that no, this is not going to fly, there is no way this is going to gain any traction, I mean, among the viewers or the listeners? Has that ever happened to you? Could you name one specific instance, or have there been several instances in which that has happened?
Actually, I mean, so many books and so, but there's one particular campaign which is most interesting, actually, and it has resurfaced on YouTube within the last 2-3 years.
Really?
It is an ad that I did for Heineken. Right? Right.
Okay.
It was around the time when We Are the World was the #1 song of the world. And
I remember this.
It was star-studded.
Yes.
Right?
Carol Addison.
Carol Addison, David Rudder.
Right. I remember that. I remember this. There was Carol Addison. It was David Rudder. There was you. You were there too.
Actually, that was the only ad I ever sang in my whole life.
Really?
Right?
Well, look at that. Yeah. I think
Colin Lucas. I can't remember.
Colin Lucas was there too. You right?
Yeah. And this boy, Derek Seals.
Derek Seals, right?
Yeah, he was in Chandler at the time. Yeah, it was just basically they got a member from each of the major bands. Remember, because the bands was Firefly, Chandelier, Song Rev, the big bands, Blue Ventures at the time. So they got one each, and Carol Addison was, queen of R&B in the Caribbean. Our
local Aretha Franklin, right?
Exactly, right? Mm-hmm. And then the ad took off like a bullet, and then it crashed about 2 weeks afterwards. Because after doing the ad, David Rudder forced the agency to pull the ad. Because after doing the ad, he decided he did not want to endorse an alcohol. But the ad was causing a very positive buzz at the time. And I think it would have, for that era, it would have flown very loud.
So that has surfaced on YouTube. We have a link to
it. It is on YouTube. I have seen it. Yeah, it's there.
Well, Jared, if you could find it and put it in the group chat, we'll link it down below so people can listen to it themselves. Because I think I vaguely remember that. What year was that, though?
That was 1985, wasn't it, Carl?
I can't remember the year. And actually, that was in the era now where
85, 86.
Yeah, but that was the era when jingle writers started to surface, right?
Okay.
Because actually the ad was recorded, because I remember I was no longer in studio. I was with Firefly. So I was basically living out of a suitcase, traveling on tour. And so, I mean, I was in part of the year, out of Carnival, I was in part of the year. So I got this job. And it was recorded at Mark Fojo's studio up in Goodwood Park. So around that era is when Mark Fojo surfaced, Graham Wilson surfaced, Nappy was already doing it. In other words, that is when jingle writers came into their fore. Then Sean Bartholomew was around that same time, So they had specialist jingle writers surface at that point in time. That is the era when the jingle writers came to fore.
Did you ever do any collaborations with any of them, like Nappy, Sean Bartholomew, any of them?
What used to happen in those days is well, I did a lot of stuff with Graham because we shared, studio space and stuff. But what will happen is sometimes you'll be like, somebody will call you because your style, a ghost behind the scenes, because somebody will get the job. So you don't infringe on people's territory, right? So I might have done keyboard for somebody or something somewhere along the line, I remember Sean Bartholomew had called me on something once. I did a couple of things with Graham Wilson, with Nappy. Who else, boy? In other words, the industry was more collaborative and more cooperative with each other than it is now.
Yeah.
So there were no egos to bruise. I mean, was there ever a clash of egos or anything like that in those days?
That was a different generation of creative people.
I would say when Kirk Mitchell died, I think a lot of it, because Kirk and I were quite good friends, and it was horrifying to me. And I know that he was one of those great jingle writers, great, musician kind of guys. And I just realized there was a huge vacuum after that. You don't find a guy like that anymore.
On the market,
I haven't heard or seen. And my next question, I don't know if Jared is going to ask this, but I don't know if there's anything lately that you've heard that stands out to you that says, hey, that jingle I just hear there's some good stuff in recent times.
Not really. All right, let me tell you the longest run jingle I have done, which actually almost became a legal issue after, was the ginseng up.
Oh, okay.
Ginseng up lively. Remember the ginseng up kind of dancehall ad?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Ginseng up yourself. Get one, then go. Get one up. No, you don't. Right, I got it.
Right, I did that, and that ran for 10, 15 years, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Or if not longer.
Yeah.
And then it stopped running for a couple of years, and then I think it was Carib who revived it.
Yeah.
But the agency I did it for at the time was, I think, Hernandez, and they had closed down since.
Yeah.
Right? So they went to revive the ad, and they went to another agency. Not the agency that we call in that place, another agency that I will not call because for legal reasons.
Okay.
And they were going to run the ad, but the end tag, I think it was Lively Up Yourself or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It became so iconic. They were sampling the end of it and just putting it onto the new jingle that they were doing. And the character who was the owner of the agency happened to hear that, be careful, if you're taking the end of that, if Beaver Henderson did that ad, you will be in some legal trouble. He picked up the phone eventually and called me, and kind of, we're friends.
Yeah.
I said, well, Beaver, I'm doing this ad, I'm just calling you out of courtesy, and, I could use it. And he was willing to give me a little piece of recess money, I should say. And I bluntly refused it, and we renegotiated a reasonable amount. Right. But he was basically going to run with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either he didn't know, or however, whatever, it did. But again, because I knew copyright law, I had to put on my foot.
Yeah.
That is my most iconic, I think, jingle I've done. And actually, who sang that for me was Ajala.
Right, Ajala.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Ajala,
where is Ajala now? Whatever happened to him? Where is he now?
He's living in New York.
He's still producing, he's still doing stuff, or has he retired?
The last thing I heard, he was working with Nicki Minaj's mother, who's into gospel.
That's interesting. That's good.
That's
good. For those of you who have no idea who we're talking about, Ajala was one of the singers from way back in the 80s.
From Firefly. He's the one who sang White Horse.
White Horse. So I'll put a link to White Horse. It's one of So I actually have a funny story told to me. If we could just segue a little bit. Um, way back in the agency, a couple of years. I don't know. Do you know by a guy by the name of Gabriel? I think you know Gabriel.
Gabriel, yeah, man.
From the agency. Yeah. So Gabriel comes to me, and we were talking about something unrelated. And I say, yeah, it's just like that song, White Horse. Yeah, remember that song? He's like, hey, I want to tell you a story about White Horse. I say, oh Lord, what's the story about White Horse? You say, I always wanted that song, but could never find it. So one day in Samoa, I see a man selling tapes. I say, hey, I want the White Horse as a song. He say, come. And he carried me in a back alley. He opened me coat. I said, Gabriel, stop talking. He said, I have the cassette right here, but it's the only recording that ever exists in the whole world. And it will cost you $10,000. I said, Gabriel, stop talking rubbish. He said, I see it. I say, well, it's on YouTube. Can we call it up and we pull it up on YouTube? He's like, boy, you know how long I looking for that song? And everybody was like that. Everybody was, and as the power of YouTube is that YouTube has finally allowed us to bring back some of these things. You know, we were talking with Timmy Mora about being able to resurrect some of these things. But White Horse is one of the songs because it's crossover. It wasn't soca. It wasn't, you know, R&B. It wasn't any one of those kind of genres. It was
pop.
Universal.
It was pop. Yeah,
but not just pop. It's universal. And I think a lot of, you know, and coming down now to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago was that when you're talking about jingle writing, is that I was pretty fed up, and we can't do it we didn't do it this year because there was no carnival this year. But every year, KFC would just appropriate somebody's soca song, change the words, and dies your jingle for carnival. And I think it's lazy. I think it's boring. I mean, the soca song they use is the one that it probably ends up being popular, but that's not the point. It's just you're just taking somebody else's music and just reappropriating it. And I think we've reached a stage now where that's what's happening. We're getting a lot of soca stars just writing music that they know will end up becoming like a jingle for somebody's brand that they get sponsorship for and they get paid for it. And yeah, okay, you're getting paid for it, you're getting money for it, no problem. Good, wonderful, awesome. But the art form suffers, you know?
Yeah, well, my whole thing with this is again, we are so quick to copy the US, but we can't even copy properly. That if you're going to go after hits or going after retro music, do like what I think Target and a couple of the companies do. They actually take the original recording, whether it's from the 60s or the 70s, right? And they don't change anything in it. They play the hit. And in other words, to try to sell their product as quality or vintage or in other words, right? So they take the true original product and represent it to you. Simple as that. But now it's a short change. And like I say, the soca artists are writing a song, hoping to get a rum company to jump in on them. So, you know, whether it's,
I don't get them wrong. I don't get them wrong, but at the same time, it's the same thing with graphic design and myself on my end. People have reached a stage where it has become, it's like a factory. You know,
it's like you say, it's the easy way out. It's the easy way out.
It's the easy way out. That's true. Yeah. Jared, have you disappeared? Jared has gone mute again. Don't know where Jared's gone. So what are you doing now?
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add regarding.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I thought. Here's the thing that I've because earlier, Beaver, you said that there's a huge difference between somebody working in, you know, somebody who's been to university and somebody who's experienced real life. And is it feasible? Is it possible for somebody with that raw talent in terms of having a keen ear for a jingle? Is it possible that person can somehow rise up the ranks and become prolific and knowledgeable? Is there room for somebody like that in the current
industry?
climate we're in? Yeah, in the industry that we're in right now.
There is. I mean, let me tell you, the blockages is at the agency. That's what the blockage is, at the agencies. Right. Let me give you another instance.
Please.
And actually, this is one of the things that actually made Kirk Mitchell. I was calling once to that place, right?
Love it. I love it. Go on.
Right. And I was asked to come into a meeting a day. I mean, that was before internet, so everything you had to come into a meeting.
Got it.
And it was off the market for a while, and they wanted to rebrand Stag. Right?
Right.
And I was brought into a meeting with somebody senior and somebody who just came back in from graduation. Right? So they put it in the hands of the person who just graduated out of school in New York, young person. And asking me, they described to me, they want to do something that is urban street, you know, it's very street, the man in the street, and everything is the man in the street and the man in the street. And Stag and the man in the street. But I'm getting conflicting ideas. I said, what do you want? R&B? You want calypso? I was just getting all kind of mixed signals. And I was a young lady, actually, who had recently graduated. So I asked the young lady, I said, you're talking about the man in the street. Have you ever walked down Frederick Street? Because the background she's from obviously is not. Right? Yeah. I said, when last you been down Frederick Street? Carnival Tuesday with the band.
Oh, good Lord.
Right. I said, have you ever walked down Frederick Street on a Friday afternoon to see what the man in the street is like?
Oh, my goodness.
No, I would never do that.
What?
So
did she say why she did?
Huh?
Did she ever say why? Did she ever say why she'd never do it? What was the reason?
At that point in time, I locked off.
You zoned out completely?
I mentally locked off.
Oh, Lord.
I just, because of the relationship I have with the agency, I realized there's certain things I do, and I could tell you no. When I lock off and I realize we're going nowhere, it depends. Like that place, the length of time I had, relationship, I did something for them that I know they were not going to accept, right? But out of courtesy, I did a demo, right? Because it was your R&B, but your R&B, but the man in the street listens to reggae, but we are calypso here, and eventually
Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, after that, and that was the opening for Kirk to come and do Stag. Remember?
Right.
It's a man's beer. Remember that campaign?
Yeah, La Cerveza de los Hombres, that kind of thing. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was Kirk's first big breakthrough.
Right. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember this. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but dealing with that young graduate was mind-blowing. And
that's putting it mildly.
The thing is, though, Carl, a lot of what's going on now, and we've talked about this on the podcast previously, especially when it comes to not just graphic design, making pretty pictures and doing TV, but overall everything to do with creativity when it comes to selling a product. There's a lot of analysis paralysis. And what you described there is a certain amount of analysis paralysis in a way where you don't know what you want, but when you hear it, you'll know it. And that is a typical situation of, I don't know what I want, but when I see it, I'll know. And it doesn't work like that. And it's not supposed to work like that. You are supposed to go, do your research, find out what it is people, well, in this case, if we did it properly, yes, you're right, take a walk down Frederick Street. I mean, I would tell the young lady, you don't even have to go that far. You could do you could do some research and find out the answer. But it's a chain of events from coming down from client to account executive, down to coordinator, down to who's assigned the job. That, and there's a lot of politics also involved. There's a lot of agency background. And this is one of the things that we want to do with this podcast is we want to bring out these stories of the kind of craziness that does happen in an agency. Remember, not specifically for writing jingles or doing a radio spot, but there's always some sort of chaos that occurs when the client says, I want A, the account executive goes and tells somebody else B, and then C ends up getting produced, and then D ends up going back to the client, and the client goes, what the and it's all a big old mess because of various things that go on. The creative director wants it this way, and the radio producer says, no, it doesn't work that way. And they have, there's a legendary fight between the creative director we worked with and a film producer who's well known, TV producer. And they had a fight that's legendary, and they haven't talked to each other apparently since then, and that's going on 20 years. And it was just simply on the director saying, well, I can't do it this way. Maybe we should do it that way. And the creative director, being the ego and whatever, flies off the handle. So there's a lot of things that go on when you enter that conference room. There's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes that you're not aware of.
A lot of unresolved issues taking place there.
But immediately, but you figure it out. You figure it out. You say, I don't want to get involved in this because this is quicksand. I will drown. I will drown. But
actually, you have given word to what exactly I described: the university graduate or the graduate of real life. Right? You see, the over-analysis comes a lot of times from the people who have graduated out of school, and there's nothing wrong graduating from school with a degree. But you have to balance it with real life.
Right, you have to balance it with real life. Exactly. That's how it works.
Absolutely.
But people come out, into the industry with the analytical attitudes of this is the way it was done at exam time, right?
Yeah.
But from your exam to after your exam, and then if you're studying in New York or you're studying in LA or London, this is not Trinidad. You're a different environment. A simple thing, like I say, the young lady didn't have to walk down Frederick. Just jump in your car and drive down Frederick Street. It's as simple as that. In other words, just look around. You can feel the energy, to understand what is necessary. But you can't stay in a glass house and kind of analyze what's happening in the outside world.
Yeah, you're not listening to the person with experience. You want to do it your way because you think the old man in the office doesn't know what they're doing. You see,
exactly.
And this is the problem you have with marketing managers and clients who go and do the degree in the MBA and can run out and start trying to sell a product, and then you realize you have no idea what you're doing. But I'm glad that you're doing it. But maybe if you could do it, no, but I know what I'm doing, and it falls apart. And one of the things we like to do on this podcast is we like to encourage people to hush and open the ears.
You see that is a problem. That is a problem because there's always that kind of conflict taking place. It is being the university graduate, as Beaver rightly pointed out, the graduate of real life. I am saying that if we could have a meld, a merging of minds. You can use your native intelligence allied with what you know in terms of regular book learning, that kind of thing. That for me is highly invaluable. But again, and this is just me talking, and I'm talking from a point of my own personal bias. I am yet to hear anything. I can't recall the last time Jared Butts, heard a jingle a local jingle that made me sit up,
you.
that impacted me. I cannot in the last 5 years,
Yeah.
and I could be wrong. I'm maybe I'm not in the loop, but I'm yet to hear anything that made me sit up and take notice and made me go, wow, I love that.
All right, let me jump in. Let's leave the advertising thing for just for a split second.
Okay, sure.
When last you heard a soca song that impacted you, that you sing it years later up to today?
Oh, that was right in the gut. I felt that one. That one hurt.
Right. No, I'm in industry. I'm real.
No, I agreed. I totally agree.
Now listen to me. All right. In this podcast, if whoever listens to it, the one nugget they could take from this is this. And this came from my biggest mentor of life. It's the late Hubert Allen, who was at Royal Bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said, no matter what, you could have wealth, money, you can have every power, whatever you want. He said, nothing in life beats experience.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing, right? And this came from him, from a certain experience he had in life. I mean, something traumatic. And he realized, and he only knew it, he lived it to say that nothing in life beats. And since then, I have paid attention to that, right? And it comes back to the same thing of a university graduate who just come out of school, or somebody who's not graduated but living the life out there.
Yeah.
I will give you just one more instance like that.
Yeah.
At that place years ago. You remember, right, in the mid 80s, right? I was doing Coca-Cola campaign, left, right, and center. Everything Coca-Cola was me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
MTV had just appeared on the scene, right? Music videos were now starting to happen.
Yes.
Firefly, we had just done 2 videos. The first one was when we launched with Fool in Love.
Was it? Yes, 1981.
And then White Horse had happened. So
85.
Again, I'm living the life realizing, and this is the way. I suggested, why don't we do a music video for Coca-Cola? I was pulled into a room and so, no, Beaver. We have agencies. We are internationally connected, and showed me all the latest. This is the latest because we study this and we study that and we study that, and this will never fly. And try that. A couple of months later, Michael Jackson Byrne is here doing Pepsi.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. In other words, we see what you're doing with this.
We are on the ground living the real life industry out there.
Yeah.
Agencies have their responsibilities, but a lot of times they disconnect to the ground, right? Because we on the ground, all right, in our industry, for instance, anytime you hear a hit record, right? That record is 1 year to 2 years old. Understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
All right. So in other words, we who created what you are hearing is we created that stuff 1 year, 2 years ago, and we onto something else. So we are setting a trend somewhere else that you don't even know. So if we are in the industry and tell you this is what is happening, you are still 1 year behind us. And that is all I've been trying to tell agencies for years.
Yeah. Overall, it's interesting because I'd never thought about it from the music production side when it came to advertising and agencies.
Yeah.
But one of the common threads that Jared and I always talk about is not the death of the agency. It's the death of the idea of what an agency used to be.
Quite
the
right.
idea that the agency is this monolithic, Mad Men-esque kind of building where all of this stuff happens, and now we've got 5 people in their houses because of what's going on with the pandemic and so on.
The unspecified virus,
doing the same thing that a large agency used to do 5-10 years ago, and it's just understanding because of experience that things change, they evolve. Music has evolved. Music has changed. The advent of autotune, for example, Jared and I laugh about it all the time. Autotune has made big stars, but at the end of the day, you have to accept it that it has happened. You can't say, well, autotune is crap, and it has its place, but you can't as an agency say, we ain't doing this TikTok and Twitter nonsense, we ain't doing all of that. But people are watching 5-10 minute music videos. I mean, when that song came out, what does the fox say? And I shared that with a friend of mine recently. He's like, "What nonsense is this?" I'm like, "This is one of the biggest tunes ever," and it's just because he released it online. It's a whole new era now where you don't have to go through a gatekeeper anymore. And the agencies need to understand that they can't be this gatekeeper anymore. They're young guys creating ads for brands because they just love the brand. And the brands are taking it up, snapping it up, and using it. So a man writing a song in his bedroom, in his underwear, and he producing that with a whatever video, whatever we partners, and that is the ad. Run the ad. And you're just like, what happened? And the agency's like, what happened? It's like, what happened is it evolved.
Actually, agencies locally have lost their direction a couple of years ago. And that's why you find a lot, I think you all have experienced it, that a lot of young artists and producers started bypassing agencies and going straight to clients.
Right? That's true. That has happened.
And obviously, the middleman's costs totally disappeared. So clients jumped at it. Even the quality was crap, because at the end of the day, when you're selling something cheap and it becomes a trend, so the agency bends now to selling the client cheapness anyhow, because that's the trend. Right? It lowers the standard and the bar of your production. So the artists and the young producers realize, hey, they are the same level with us, so let's bypass the agency and start going straight to the client. So that whole game changed, man.
But Carl, what are you doing now? What are you currently doing now? What's your position in life?
In life, I am enjoying life. All right, in my industry, it has its cycles. I'm what you call, all right, there are two sides of it. The creative, and I am not on the up financial cycle of it. It's gonna come back again because I've lived it up and down and down. Because I am a creative spirit. So I am not in the industry to make money to retire. Understand?
Got it.
Our industry don't ever retire.
Right? That's true.
So you invest, you do things, you don't make as much money, or you stop working for a while to be creative or redevelop. All right. I have just spent the last 2 years basically, again, like I keep telling people, I'm an analog child living in a digital world. Technology fascinates me like a 60-year-old, 70-year-old child. So I have spent the last 2 years redeveloping my whole system to get back my analog sound that I've had my whole life, that digital took away from me. And I've just reached that space in the last couple of months. I am about to make major moves again.
Wow, that is incredible. That is...
No, but the thing is,
that is awesome.
I had to sacrifice that. In other words, you can't be on the hustle and reinventing yourself at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't divide yourself like that.
Because you all are creative peoples and you know that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to give it your focus. So exactly. You starve a little bit. You starve a little bit, but
you have to hibernate. You have to hibernate, to refocus yourself and stuff like that. And I am in such of a happy, comfortable, creative space. In audio, at this point in time, there's almost nothing I cannot do. Right? Like you were talking about auto-tune. Actually, there was a discussion online about that, right? People talk about auto-tune. I have every one of the tools, auto-tune, Melodyne, and this. I mess with it. I could do anything. Like, for instance, I just did, or recently did a campaign for someone, right? A simple campaign. And they wanted different versions of stuff, right? But the two different versions they wanted of the two different jingles, right? One was in a major key and one was in a minor key, right? I don't know if you understand that musically.
Yeah.
So the vocalist came and sang in the major key, right? So to do the version in the minor key, instead of bringing back the vocalist to sing over a different melody in the minor key, I took the exact same vocal track that the vocalist did, went into Melodyne and changed the melody. Right? And you can't tell
let the computer do it. You let the computer do it.
Yeah, but there's software to do that, my friend.
Yeah.
Right? Like again, people will complain, but that is unfair, that is not real music. And somebody was a discussion online abroad, said, people who complain about autotune and Melodyne and stuff. All right. Yeah. Look at the guitar that people play today, right? And you notice there are frets and on a fretboard.
Yeah.
The original plucked instrument never had frets. The frets are actually auto-tune, tells you where to play the notes. Right?
That's true.
So the original instrument, I think it was the lute, a couple 100 years ago, had no frets. Like a violin, a violin doesn't have frets. Right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So a guitar bass that has frets is auto-tuned, so they could say you're cheating playing a guitar bass.
Very good point.
That's pretty insightful, actually. That's pretty insightful.
Good point. Yeah.
So I mean, again, like for instance, production. Like I help a guy do a little reggae. And, I mean, I've done reggae and stuff like that. I am doing EDM music. I'm doing electronica. I'm doing Afro pop. I'm doing everything. I'm doing every genre. I'm doing deep house, right? But in the past, I've always been messing with it. And like, for instance, what has happened is, because you're living in Trinidad, each one of those genres has a base in a different country and culture, right? So it's like somebody coming from abroad and coming to do a calypso or soca. It will never sound the same, correct?
Correct.
Right. So if I am going into your turf, what I do is my loop and sound library is immense over the years. It's huge. It is, I should say, insanely immense. Right? So what I do is, like, I will use loops from whatever genre I'm going into, and the groove, I use that as a foundation groove. So I groove to that. So in other words, I don't stray from that. So in other words, I am genuine to the original source that it came from. And that's how I approach it.
But that library that you have amassed, that is a big resource. That's a huge resource.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
My asset in life today is software. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, we have.
Plus, I have subscriptions. I have subscriptions into software that the best of producers and engineers in the world, we all have now the same tools. So in other words, I have access to everything that anybody who's producing with me or Rihanna, we are on the same level at this point in time.
Yeah. Just as an aside, I now that you say that, I remember when Caribbean Sound Basin was launched. And it was a big deal. You have all these studios and you have all this equipment and all that.
I just think
to yourself, now you have all of that in the laptop. The laptop has it all. And more. And you don't actually need a big physical building to do it. I mean, you do need a sound room if you're going to be doing proper, stuff, which is what we always say on our podcast, that one day we have to actually get a sound room where we could do this properly, Jared and I.
We can do this and have microphones and everything.
One day, please send us money. Send us money. But
please send us money.
No, but guys, listen to me. Don't go that way. We can sit down and talk. I can show you. You can buy maybe one piece of equipment that could solve your problem. You don't have to go and do anything major. Trust me.
Right now, Jared needs one piece of equipment more than I do. Jared is doing this on his phone. But we could talk about that, definitely. Moving forward, we could talk about that.
As a matter of fact, I mean, I could tell you where to go to look at now, so you could think about it in future. You could go onto the site of Persona's site, right? Persona's has designed a piece of equipment for that, for podcasts.
Okay. Well, why don't you drop that in the WhatsApp chat for us, and John and I could take a look at it.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Good.
Yeah, it's a complete system. Complete system for podcasts.
Yeah.
Right?
Good. I think we have reached our time. We don't like to go. We tell everybody this. We don't like to go too long because we know people have lives and they don't like to
people's attention span is much smaller in today's world.
So that's what we usually do to wrap this up, I want to say thanks, Carl, for coming on to the show.
Thank you, Beaver.
This has actually been very great. This is awesome. Very informative. We will definitely want to have you on again to talk specifically. I think, Jared, you wanted to talk specifically about one of the ads. I can't remember what it was now, but we'll talk about it and then maybe later on. One of the things we want to do is to try to bring people back, like for more of a group session with other people. So like Anthony Burnley and
that's the main objective.
Tracy and so on. So you kind of have a little jam session with people, you know.
Not a problem.
Carl, thank you very much again for coming. What we usually do to wrap this up is we have a definition. So Jared, what are we going to define? What are we defining today?
Okay, what is a jingle?
What is a jingle? What's a jingle, Jared?
Yes.
A jingle is a 30 or 60-second hit song.
But
that's not important right now. Thank you very much, guys, everybody.
Beaver, thank you. It's been a pleasure and a privilege.
Yeah.
Have a nice night, guys.
Thank you very much. Okay, Carl. See you.